What's going on, everybody? It's your boys from the Locker Room Rant. I'm Tony. With me, as always, is John V. and Nico. Say hello, fellas.
How's it going?
What's going on, guys?
Doing things a little differently this time. We're trying something out.
Explain yourself, Nick.
We're going to do like not live content, but we're going to pre-record some content, and we're not gonna go away from the live stuff. We're gonna continue to do that, but just not as much. We're gonna focus more on this pre-recorded content. That way, we can chill out actually some more material for you guys.
Goodbye, motherfucker!
And as it should be.
One thing that hasn't changed about the Locker Room Rant is we still got the penalty box, and Nick's still going in there after that long-ass, stupid explanation of what we're doing with the show, okay? So, we're going to give it another 5 seconds. We're going to bring Nico back from the penalty box, and we're going to start the new version of the Locker Room Rant.
Hey, Nick, welcome back.
I just wanted everyone to know that the show's still the same, and there's still a penalty box for you to go to. Okay? So one thing I want to talk about on this episode, I want to talk about the greatest sports generations of all time, because I feel like we've been very spoiled with our generation, and I want your guys' thoughts on this. So Nick, start us off.
There's a lot of great generations in sports, and I equate generations as like maybe like 5 years, maybe a decade. Any way you want to slice or dice it that way. But if I had to pick my favorite decade, and the one that I wish like my sports heart went to, was like the 1940s and 50s. Because I'm a big baseball historian. I don't like the way baseball is played right now. I don't like certain aspects of the game. But back then, baseball was the game of the common kid. You'd have stickball on the street. You'd have your idols were baseball players. You had guys like Joe DiMaggio, Ted Williams, Bob Gibson, Bob Feller, those guys. I used to talk about baseball all the time with my dad. So like this era is something that really, really interests me. Also, another big sport that's like gone a little bit to the wayside that used to be like predominant was boxing. And being heavyweight champion of the world like really meant something back then. You had guys like Joe Louis, Rocky Marciano. Boxing was a big thing back then. The biggest celebrity in the country was the heavyweight champion of the world. It's two sports that like I don't really, I'm more interested in basketball and NFL now, but I really love the history of those two sports more than anything. And also intertwines with like historical aspects too. Like you had World War II, you had players taking off and going fighting in wars and stuff like that. It was just a different time. It was like it's more of like it was just a different type of atmosphere back then. The players of the sports were more relatable. That's essentially the case why I make for the 40s and 50s.
Yeah, I feel like you think of like load management in the NBA today.
Mm-hmm.
And load management. Guys like John Stockton played. I want to say I remember reading the stat not too long ago. I think he played however many seasons he played in the NBA. I want to say it was like 15, 16 seasons in the NBA. Yep. And I think all but 3 of those he played 82 games.
Oh yeah, those guys played every day. I mean, the load management thing didn't start till like maybe the 2000s, and I'm just taking a guess, but back in the day, players played all the time. Like even when Cal Ripken broke the record for most consecutive games played in Major League Baseball, the normal player didn't take off like 5-6 games during the season. The normal player, he might have got injured once every couple seasons, you know?
I think the 90s is got to be the best decade in sports.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, it was a good decade. You had Michael and the Bulls.
Nick's talking about the 40s and the 50s, bro. Like, I don't give a fuck about the 40s and the 50s. I don't give a shit. I mean, I barely understood anything relating sports till I was like 12 years old, Nick. I mean, you're talking about the 40s and the 50s.
That's because you lack culture.
Yeah, I lack culture like you lack common sense. Regardless,
it's because you're Neanderthal.
Because I'm a Neanderthal. Good one. The 90s were relevant to us. I mean, we were born in 83. So like the 90s were relevant because that's where most of our favorite, I could have given a shit to be a baseball player when I was a kid. I didn't even compare myself to a baseball player. That's just you, Nick, comparing yourself to someone from the 40s. I compared myself, if I had a basketball in my hand, to Michael Jordan. I mean, we were always making layups, trying to dunk, jumping off objects to try to dunk.
You have comparable skill to Jordan, that's for sure.
I tried to, when it relates to football, I obviously wanted to be Joe Montana and Jerry Rice, and I attached myself to players of the 90s, right? So for me, the 90s are completely relevant, and that's where my birth for sports was. I mean, that's when it started, right? I mean, my love for the 49ers started in the 90s.
Okay.
Actually, and basketball came a little bit later. I enjoyed the Cavs later on in life a little more. I never had the luxury of going to a game as a kid, but I did go to Cleveland Indian games, and I had gone to a few hockey games. I love baseball, and I love today's baseball more than anything. So that's it.
Today's baseball blows.
Today's baseball for me is the best. I mean, naturally, I love football more, but I love today's baseball.
Sometimes I dream that he's me. Got to say that's how I
You do have
two coming right up.
That could be like Mike.
You do have resembling skills to Michael Jordan, John. I always said that.
You're definitely comparable. You can definitely compare yourself to
him. Listen, sports does not get better than our generation. And I don't know if it's because it's really when sports started taking off. The main sports now, NFL really started taking off, I think, in the 90s. NBA, still a young league, started taking off in the 90s to new levels.
I would say it started taking off in the 80s.
Yeah, like the 85 Bears, bro.
You guys, we have seen, and with the exception of a few sports, and maybe that's sports boxing, I think we've seen the greatest of all time at each sport in our lifetime.
I'd say so, probably.
I know, Nick, I know you're going to say baseball shit, but whoever you're going to say,
irrelevant.
Does not compare it to Barry Bonds.
Yeah, but that's in
don't
a way that's
care.
In a way that's
I don't care. I don't care if he took steroids. I don't care if he took steroids. He was the greatest baseball player of all time. He got walked with the bases loaded intentionally.
But whether or not you care, whether or not if you care, even if you care that he took steroids or not, that's a conversation up to debate. But you can't deny that it put a stink on the thing.
Oh, it put a stank on it.
Even if you are in his court saying, "Who cares? Everyone took steroids. He took steroids."
That's me. I don't give a shit.
It just put a stink on it. There was court hearings on it. Nobody wants that stuff.
Nick, the sport is entertainment. It's entertainment.
One of the reasons why I like the older generations is particularly because they played the game. You could tell they played the game for the love of the game. You could tell you could tell Ted Williams was a baseball player because he wanted to be a baseball player. Like if you ever heard Ted Williams talk about baseball, you could tell he loved it. The players now, you can't, you have to anticipate they do it particularly for the money. And the love of their game is like very secondary, if at all. Like if you hear Ted Williams talk, he talk about how his favorite smell was the smell of the bat hitting the ball and the friction creating the smoke. You know, it's stuff like that I like.
What the fuck is he talking about, dude?
Once again,
I lost him.
Once again, you're a Neanderthal. You probably never even heard Ted Williams talk
Nick,
about it.
There's probably then consider myself and most of our listeners Neanderthals because nobody finds what you're saying is
It may be.
It's admirable, it's boring, and it sounds ridiculous. So move on.
We've had Tiger Woods.
Jesus Christ.
We've had Tiger Woods, which when the smoke clears, people will probably say was the greatest golfer of all time. Nick, are you frozen? What's going on
He's
there?
frozen. The big gulp of squirt. Frozen and clustered. Nope.
No, he's still
God,
just can't get this fucking right.
I didn't think it would matter.
What? Oh, my God.
So John, we got to see the greatest NBA player that will ever live, ever. Do you agree?
Kobe? Michael? Yeah.
We got to see probably the greatest.
Next generations are only 5 years, so
Probably the greatest. We've got to see the greatest wide receiver of all time. There will never be another Jerry Rice. And the reason I say there will never be another is because he's the first. Like anytime someone compares LeBron to Jordan or Kobe to Jordan, so-and-so to Jordan, it's comparing apples to oranges because Jordan was first. He came first. Who's to say those guys would even be half of what they are if he didn't come first? And he was that pioneer that took the game to new levels. So I get pissed off when I hear comparisons to Jordan and he's better than Jordan. Like, come on. You might not even be here if it wasn't for that guy. So I think we've seen the best basketball player of all time. I know we've seen the best quarterback of all time. Whether you want to say he's the best passer with the touchdowns and the yards, no one else in the history of the NFL will ever, as a quarterback, get 7 rings. And he's not even done yet. How many Super Bowls Go ahead.
I'm a guy that likes to Tony, for some reason, I always question, would Brady have acquired and earned 7 rings in the course of the 80s and the 90s when the league was so much more violent? I mean, violent, right? I mean, that was an era of football that we'll never be able to compare it to, right?
Yeah, we'll never know. And how many titles would Jordan have won today? You know what I'm saying? You can't really compare.
So physical.
Jordan would have probably averaged 40 points a game in today's NBA.
But he also might have fouled out before the second quarter. So, I mean, it's just such a different game. Basketball was dope in the 90s, bro. Think about it.
Best.
I mean, what was an average foul in the early 90s is a flagrant foul today.
You ever watch some of those old games that they'll play on like ESPN every once in a while?
Yeah.
And the Detroit Pistons used to clothesline people that were going up for layups and dunks. They would like clothesline you.
Oh my God.
And it would be like a common foul, not even like a technical.
That was awesome.
That was
Basketball was awesome.
So we got Jordan. We got Tiger Woods in golf. We got Serena Williams. There will never be another Serena Williams. All three of those fuckers in tennis, Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic, are like the best ever.
Sure.
What's another sport? Wide receiver, Jerry Rice. There will never be another Jerry Rice. There will never be another Tom Brady. What are some other
swimming? We've got swimming. We've got Olympians. I mean,
we got Michael Phelps.
Michael Phelps. There's never going to be another.
Never.
I mean, maybe not in our lifetime. Okay. Let's go boxing.
Sprinter. You have Usain Bolt. There will never probably be anyone faster than that dude.
I mean, I don't know about NASCAR racers. I really don't know much about that. I don't know much about them. But I'd say that in our generation, in our lifetime, the last 25 years of our lives, probably we've seen the best that sports have to offer as a whole, A to Z. You know,
boxing. I mean, we had Mike Tyson, which was cool for probably 4, 5, 6, 7 year span. You know, there was at one point he was like the most popular man on earth, like overseas,
knockout king, absolutely,
like overseas, everywhere.
Yes,
and
yes, and he was primarily known for his knockouts.
Oh yeah, he would end fights in minutes, seconds.
I mean, seconds. So yeah. Look at it this way, bro. We have gotten the pleasure, and we have the pleasure of watching some of the best athletes, even right now. You hear time and time again that the NBA right now is in good hands with the youth. I think that the NBA may be the most balanced for the youth, for younger guys to come, the next generation of NBA stars. There's so many, and they're awesome.
Luka, Tatum, Morant, Giannis. I mean, the list goes. Zion, which I don't know if you've seen Zion.
Young.
Have you seen Zion lately?
I have seen Zion, man, but I gotta know, dude. Is Zion the guy? The guy is. It's an up and down, right? It's up and down with Zion, right? There's really no consistency.
I don't know about his ups and downs, but they just showed him on Inside the NBA. What's that? What's the show with Charles Barkley and them? Is that Inside the NBA or whatever the hell?
That's on TNT.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't even.
Whatever it's called.
They crack me up regardless.
They showed Zion practicing on the court for like the first time because he's slowly coming back and is going to started one-on-one drills, and hopefully he'll be back around All-Star break, whatever. But they showed Zion and he got really fat, dude. He's like, he got really fat. Even Charles Barkley was like, Shaq, that looks like me and you had a baby.
I mean, that was one of the red flags of Zion coming into the league, right? Was weight. And he could move he could move it better than anyone, right? I mean, the guy was vicious, right?
Yeah.
And in part, that's why I can't understand why we don't hear enough about Zion. He was supposed to be the second coming to the next generation. Right. I mean, he was supposed to be the LeBron of the next generation. And I've got to question that it was Zion drafted by a team that has not managed him properly. Are they not using him the right way?
He can't stay healthy.
His physicality, his body size, his body mass, is that hindering his success as a young basketball player in today's league? I mean, these guys ahead of John Morant, these guys are they're moving forward in such a fast pace in today's league that Zion can't keep up. The dude's behind, and he was supposed to be the second coming, right? I mean, let's be honest. Before that draft, it was Zion, and now it's just like, bro, this guy is irrelevant right now. He's not making headlines, not the right ones anyway.
So, Nick, you're sticking with the 40s and 50s. There's no taking you out of that, huh?
No, I mean, like, I'll admit the players aren't as physically gifted as today's athletes, but I don't necessarily think that makes for a better spectacle. I like the aura of the 40s and 50s.
Yeah, but that's pertaining to baseball only.
No, it pertains. Well, you got to realize the NFL wasn't really going on till you had like the early days of football, but the NFL wasn't even really going on until like the 1960s, I believe. And basketball was in its infancy back then. So really your two main sports were boxing and baseball.
Yeah. Fair point.
And college sports. Obviously college football was big back then.
Yeah, so Nick's sticking with the 40s and 50s. I'm sticking with the 90s, even though my Buffalo Bills lost 4 straight Super Bowls. John, what decade you going with?
I'm with you, bro. Late 80s, early 90s. My 49ers birthed 5 championships. So, I'm good. I'm happy, and I'm good where I'm at, man.
Sounds good, guys. Well. Let's wrap it up. I think me and John win. Nick loses, right? At the end of the day.
Yeah, that's it.
And never lose.
We win 2-1. That's what happens when there's 3 people. And 2 of them against 1 equals the 2 wins. So 90s win, and let's wrap it up.
These are the 40s and the 50s.
Yeah. Nick acts like he went to the barber shop with these guys. Ted Williams. I'm sitting there with Ted Williams.
God wish I sat with Ted Williams.
We were smoking cigars with Ted Williams. All right, guys.
Yeah.
Any last requests?
No.
Good. We're good.
Remember to hit subscribe down below for your boys. It's the Locker Room Rant. We'll catch you next time. Peace.